You are listening to Furious HOA Karens. She said hearing, and I said show me the rule. Karen held up a stack of photos and yelled that she had been building a case against my fence for weeks. Do not call your spouse, call compliance. She waved the stack like a prosecutor with a smoking gun, standing on my lawn while I held a post-hole digger, dirt still fresh on the blade. Michelle Hayes, Finance Committee Lead for the Briarstone Homeowners Association here in Park City, Utah. She had her laminated fence guideline sheet in the other hand, snapping it like a referee throwing a flag. The photos were printed on glossy paper, edges sharp, angles calculated. She had been watching, documenting, waiting for this exact moment. I work nights at the water treatment plant, strict schedules, no flexibility. My fence materials were arriving in 2 hours. I had taken a personal day to get the posts in before the weekend, because the contractor crew was only available Monday. Michelle knew that. She knew my schedule. She knew the delivery window. And she showed up the second I broke ground. She stepped closer, boots crunching dead grass, and held one photo up to my face. My property line. My grass. My post-hole digger on the ground yesterday during layout. That is a safety hazard, she said. You left tools unattended in a common view area. This is not a common area, I said. This is my yard. She flipped to another photo. A measuring tape on the grass. A string line tied to stakes. The level leaning against the fence I was replacing. Every single prep step I had taken in the last 72 hours. Keep talking, she said. I love adding notes. I glanced past her at the street. A maintenance worker in a reflective vest was trimming hedges 3 houses down, watching us without looking directly. He had been there 15 minutes. I made a mental note. Michelle pulled out her phone, thumbs flying. I am logging this interaction, she said. Unapproved groundwork. No permit posted. Contractor disclosure form not filed. And you are in violation of setback requirements. I have a survey, I said. She smiled. Not filed with the association. I do not need to file a private survey with you. Yes, you do. Page 19 of the guidelines. She turned the laminated sheet toward me, finger-tapping a paragraph, but she did not let me take it or read it. Just tapped and pulled it back. Classic move. I had seen her do it in meetings. Waive the rulebook, never let anyone confirm. I need to see that language, I said. You can request a copy through the office, she said. Standard 7 business day turnaround. My delivery is in 2 hours. Then you should have planned better. She turned and walked back toward the street, already dialing. I heard her say, "Hi. This is Michelle Hayes from the Finance Committee. I need a stop work flag delivered to." I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera app. My doorbell camera covered the front walk and half the yard. I scrubbed back to last night. 11:40 p.m. motion alert. Michelle walking up my driveway with a pen light and a clipboard. She stopped at the stakes I had set for the fence line, crouched, took photos with her phone, wrote something on the clipboard, then walked back to her car. 18 minutes total. No knock. No notice left. Just recon. I saved the clip. She came back, phone still in her hand. A vendor is on the way, she said. They will be marking your materials as unauthorized dumping and arranging removal. You cannot do that. I absolutely can. Unapproved construction materials in a residential zone. They are on my property. Not if they are blocking access or creating a nuisance. They are in my driveway. We will see what the vendor says. I wanted to yell. I wanted to grab the laminated sheet and rip it in half. But I did not. I nodded like I accepted it, because I wanted her comfortable and careless. She checked her watch. I have a call in 30 minutes, she said. I will be watching for the delivery. If your contractor shows up, I will be documenting that too. She walked to her car, a white sedan with a Briarstone HOA parking placard in the window. She sat in the driver's seat but did not leave, just opened a laptop on the passenger seat and started typing. Watching me. I called the contractor. Voicemail. I called the materials supplier. They confirmed delivery between 1 and 3 p.m. I asked if they had ever heard of an HOA intercepting a delivery. The guy on the phone laughed and said, "You live in Briarstone? Good luck, man." I went inside and pulled the file I had been building since I moved here 3 years ago. Every notice, every email, every meeting minute I could access. Briarstone is the kind of neighborhood where group emails are used like public shaming posters. Someone does not mow on time, it is in the group thread with a photo. Someone parks wrong, it is in the thread with a license plate number. Michelle ran the finance committee and she loved adding mysterious line items to the quarterly statements. Extra fees that no one could explain. Enforcement surcharges that appeared and disappeared. I opened the neighborhood group chat on my phone, scrolled back 2 weeks. There it was. Michelle had posted, "Does anyone have contractor recommendations for fence removal and disposal?" asking for a friend. 3 replies with vendor names. One of those vendors was the same company she just called. I took a screenshot. Then I went back further. 4 weeks ago. A thread about property line disputes. Someone asked how the HOA handled survey disagreements. Michelle replied, "We defer to the recorded plat and our internal measurements. Owner surveys are considered advisory unless approved by the board." I took another screenshot. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister back in California. She sent money every month to help with her kids. I sent money every month to help with our parents. My job paid well, but it was tight. I could not afford surprise fees or a tow bill. That was my stake. That was why I could not just roll over. I went back outside. Michelle was still in her car. The maintenance worker was gone. The street was quiet. I walked to the property line and checked the stakes. They were exactly where the surveyor had marked them 6 months ago when I ordered the survey in preparation for this project. The survey showed my existing fence was actually 3 inches inside my property line. The new fence would sit on the exact boundary, which was legal and standard. Michelle got out of her car. She had her phone up, recording. "What are you doing?" she called. "Confirming my property line. You are not allowed to alter the boundary without board approval." "I am not altering anything. I am confirming what is already recorded." She walked over, still recording. "You are in violation," she said. "I am documenting this for the hearing." "What hearing?" "The emergency compliance hearing. Monday at 7 p.m. I did not receive a notice." "You will. I am filing it today." A truck turned onto the street. My materials delivery. A flatbed with fence panels, posts, concrete mix, all strapped down. The driver slowed, looking for my address. Michelle stepped into the street and waved him down. I ran over. She was already talking to the driver through the window. "I need you to log this delivery as disputed," she said. "The homeowner does not have approval." The driver looked at me. "You order this?" "Yes." Michelle held up her phone, showing him something. "This is a violation notice," she said. "If you unload without clearance, you are liable." The driver looked at his clipboard, then at me, then at Michelle. "Lady, I just deliver the stuff." "I will pay you double to take it back," Michelle said. "You cannot do that," I said. The driver scratched his head. "Look, I got 6 more stops today. I am not getting in the middle of this." "Just unload it in my driveway," I said. He looked at Michelle. She smiled. "I will be filing a complaint with your company," she said. "And I will be sending an invoice for removal costs to the HOA, which will be added to his account." The driver sighed. He unloaded everything in my driveway, fast, no small talk. Panels leaning against the garage, posts in a stack, bags of concrete mix on a pallet. He got back in the truck and left without a word. Michelle took photos of everything. Then she made a call. "Hi, yes, this is Michelle Hayes again. I need a cleanup crew for unauthorized materials dumping at." I interrupted. "These are not dumped. They are purchased construction materials on private property." She covered the phone. "Keep talking, I love adding notes." She finished the call and walked back to her car. 2 hours, she said. "The crew will be here in 2 hours." I called my contractor again. This time he picked up. "Hey man, I saw your message. What is going on?" I explained. He groaned. "Dude, I have dealt with Briarstone before. They tried to fine me directly last year for parking my truck on a client's driveway. I told them to pound sand, but it was a nightmare. If they are threatening to mess with the materials, I cannot start Monday. I cannot risk my license." "I need this done," I said. "I get it," he said, "but I am not touching it until you have clearance. Call me when it is sorted." He hung up. I stood in my driveway, looking at $2,000 of materials and a finance committee lead who was currently typing on her laptop in her car, probably drafting the notice she promised. I went inside and called the management company that handled Briarstone enforcement. I got a voicemail. "Office hours Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. I left a message asking for an emergency callback and explaining the situation. Then I called a real estate attorney my coworker had used. Left another message. Then I sat down and opened the HOA governing documents on my laptop. I had read them before, but now I needed every detail. Setback rules, fence height limits, approval processes, enforcement timelines. I found the section Michelle referenced. It said any exterior modification requires board approval unless it falls under routine maintenance or replacement in kind. My fence was replacement in kind. Same height, same location, same material type. I was replacing rotted posts and sagging panels with new ones on the same line. I took a screenshot of that section. Then I found the enforcement section. It said any violation notice must be delivered in writing with a minimum of 10 business days to remedy before a hearing. Michelle said the hearing was Monday. That was 3 business days. I took another screenshot. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Briarstone HOA. You are in violation of construction codes. Emergency hearing Monday 7 p.m. Attend or face automatic fines." No letterhead, no case number, no violation details. Just a text. I screenshotted it. I went back outside. Michelle was still there. I walked over to her car and knocked on the window. She rolled it down an inch. "I need the written notice," I said. "You just got it." "I need it in writing per the governing docs." She sighed, opened her laptop, clicked a few things, and then her printer in the back seat started humming. She pulled out a single sheet and handed it through the gap. It was a generic template. Violation. Unauthorized construction. Hearing. Monday 7 p.m. Remedy. Cease all activity and restore property to prior condition. No case number. No specific code cited. No photo evidence attached. I took a photo of it with my phone. Then I asked, "What is the specific setback violation?" "You are encroaching on the setback easement." "Which easement?" "The perimeter easement. I have a survey that shows I am inside my property line." "Your survey is not approved." "Who approves surveys?" "The board." "When is the next board meeting?" "Next month." "So I cannot get approval until next month, but you are holding a hearing on Monday?" She smiled. Correct. I walked back inside. I needed help. I called my neighbor 2 doors down, a guy named Eric who had been on the board 2 years ago and quit because Michelle made it impossible to get anything done. He answered on the second ring. Eric, it is me. I need your advice. What did Michelle do now? I told him. He laughed, bitter. She pulled the same thing on another guy last year, forced him to tear down a pergola that was fully compliant. She uses the emergency hearing process to skip the notice period and then loads the meeting with her allies. You need a lawyer. I called one. Waiting for a call back. Good. In the meantime, document everything. Every interaction. Every photo. Every text. And do not let them touch your materials. What if the crew shows up? Film it. Do not physically stop them, but film everything and tell them you are filing a police report if they remove your property. Got it. And one more thing, Eric said. Michelle is dirty. I do not have proof, but when I was on the board, there were fees that did not add up, vendor payments that looked inflated. I tried to audit it and she blocked me every time. If you can get access to the financials, you might find something. How do I get access? Public records request. Utah law says HOA financials are member records. You are a member. Request them in writing. I will. Good luck, man. She is going to make this hell. If you are enjoying this HOA nightmare, smash that like button and subscribe for more wild stories where the bad guy always loses. I hung up and immediately drafted an email to the management company and the board. Subject, formal public records request. Body, I am requesting copies of all financial records, vendor contracts, and meeting minutes for the past 12 months, as allowed under Utah Code Section 57-8A-227. Please provide within the statutory 15 business days. I hit send. Then I started going through my doorbell camera footage. I had motion alerts going back 6 months. I scrubbed through them. Michelle walking past my house at odd hours. 4 times in the last 2 weeks. Always at night. Always slow. Always looking at my yard. I clipped every instance and saved them to a folder. 2 hours later, a white van pulled up. Logo on the side, quick haul junk removal. 2 guys got out, both in company shirts, looking at a work order on a tablet. I went outside with my phone recording. Hey, I said. What are you here for? The taller guy checked the tablet. We got a call for materials removal at this address. Who called it in? HOA complaint, says unauthorized dumping. These are not dumped, I said. These are construction materials I purchased. They are on my property. He looked at his partner. Man, we just do what the work order says. I need you to leave, I said. If you remove anything, I am filing a police report for theft. The shorter guy held up his hands. Look, we do not want trouble. We will call the office. He stepped aside and made a call. I kept recording. A minute later, he came back. Office says the HOA is paying and they confirmed the complaint. We are supposed to proceed. I called 911. I stayed calm. I explained the situation. Theft in progress. Junk removal company trying to take my property based on a fraudulent complaint. The dispatcher said an officer would be en route. The taller guy heard that and shook his head. We are not waiting for cops, man. We are out. They got back in the van and left. A police cruiser pulled up 10 minutes later. Officer Ramos. I explained everything, showed him the work order photo I snapped, the doorbell footage of Michelle from last night, the text notice, and the contractor callback. He took notes. Okay, he said. So the HOA is claiming a violation, but you are saying you are in compliance? Yes. I have a survey. Did you file for a building permit with the city? No. Residential fence replacement under 6 feet does not require a city permit in Park City. He nodded. What about HOA approval? My governing docs say replacement in kind does not require approval. I am replacing an existing fence on the same line. He wrote that down. All right. Here is the deal. This is a civil dispute. I cannot stop the HOA from holding a hearing, and I cannot force them to approve your project. But if anyone tries to remove your property without your consent, that is theft. You did the right thing calling. I am going to file a report with an incident number. If they try again, call us and reference this case. He handed me a card with the case number written on it. I took a photo of it. Do you think they will try again? I asked. He shrugged. HOAs are weird, man. I have seen them do crazier stuff. Just keep records and do not escalate physically. He left. I went back inside and checked my email. Nothing from the attorney. Nothing from the management company. But I did have 3 new messages in the neighborhood group chat. Michelle had posted a photo of my driveway with the materials and captioned it, "Unapproved construction dumping at my ad. Please be advised this is under investigation." 12 replies already, most supportive of her. One person asked if I had a permit. Another said they hoped it got resolved quickly. One person, though, replied, "Wait, is this the same thing that happened to Dave last year? This seems like overreach." That person was Eric. Michelle replied fast, "Every case is different. This resident was notified and chose to proceed anyway." Eric replied again. Was he notified in writing with the required 10 business days per the governing documents? Michelle did not reply. I sent Eric a private message. "Thank you." He replied, "No problem. She hates when anyone asks about process. Keep pushing." I spent the rest of the day preparing. I printed every screenshot. I organized them into a binder with tabs. Evidence 1, survey. Evidence 2, governing docs showing replacement in kind exemption. Evidence 3, doorbell footage showing late-night recon. Evidence 4, group chat screenshots showing coordination. Evidence 5, text notice with no case number. Evidence 6, police report with incident number. I also printed the public records request confirmation and added it as evidence 7. By Sunday night, I had a 40-page packet. I still had not heard from the attorney, so I decided I was going alone. Monday at 6:50 p.m., I drove to the Briarstone Clubhouse. The parking lot was half full. I recognized most of the cars. Board members. Michelle. A few neighbors who always attended meetings. I walked in with my binder and a calm I did not feel. The meeting room was set up with a long table at the front and rows of chairs facing it. Michelle sat in the center of the table with 4 other board members. She saw me and smiled. I sat in the front row. At 7, the board president, a man named Greg, called the meeting to order. He read the agenda. 1 item. Emergency compliance hearing regarding unauthorized fence construction. Greg nodded to Michelle. She stood and opened a folder. The resident at my has violated multiple sections of our governing documents, Michelle said. Unauthorized construction. Failure to file required disclosures. Encroachment on setback easements. And refusal to comply when notified. She laid out the photos she had taken, one by one. Me with the post hole digger. The string line. The materials delivery. She did not mention her late-night visit. She did not mention the junk removal attempt. She did not mention threatening my contractor. Greg looked at me. "Do you want to respond?" I stood. I opened my binder. First, I said, I was not notified in writing with the required 10 business days as specified in Section 12 of the governing documents. I received a text message on Friday afternoon and this hearing was scheduled for tonight. That is 3 business days. Michelle interrupted. The violation was ongoing and posed an immediate safety risk. Emergency procedures allow expedited hearings. I continued. Second, my fence is replacement in kind, which is exempt from approval per Section 8.3. I am replacing an existing fence on the same property line with the same height and material type. Michelle said, "Your property line is disputed." I pulled out the survey. I have a licensed survey showing the exact boundary. My fence is within my property. Michelle said, "That survey was not filed with the board." I do not need board approval for a private survey. This is a certified legal document. Greg leaned forward. "Can I see that?" I handed it to him. He reviewed it, then passed it to the board member next to him. Michelle stood. "Even if the survey is accurate," she said, "the construction process itself was a violation. Unapproved groundwork. No posted permit. No contractor disclosure." I pulled out the next tab. The governing documents do not require a permit for fence replacement. The City of Park City does not require a permit for residential fences under 6 feet. And contractor disclosure is only required for new construction, not replacement. Michelle was getting flustered. "You left tools in a common view area." My yard is not a common area. It creates a visual nuisance. I was working. Tools are part of construction. Greg held up his hand. "Okay, let us take a step back. Michelle, do you have documentation of the boundary issue?" She pulled out a diagram. "Our internal measurements show his fence line encroaches 6 inches into the perimeter easement." I pulled out my next tab. "What perimeter easement? There is no recorded easement on my property per the county plat." Michelle said, "It is an association easement." "Show me the document." She did not have it. Greg looked uncomfortable. "Michelle, if there is no recorded easement, we cannot enforce it." She pivoted fast. "Fine. The violation stands for failure to notify. He did not inform the board before starting work." I pulled out another tab. Section 8.3 says notification is required for new exterior structures. This is replacement of an existing structure. No notification required. Michelle slapped the table. "I will bury you in notices until you run out of printer ink." The room went quiet. Greg said, "Michelle, let us keep this professional." She sat down, breathing hard. I pulled out the next tab. Doorbell camera footage. I played it on my phone and held it up so the board could see. Michelle walking up my driveway at 11:40 p.m., photographing my stakes, writing notes, leaving without knocking. "What is this?" Greg asked. That is Michelle conducting a late-night inspection, without notice and without identifying herself. Michelle said, "I was gathering evidence." "You were trespassing." "I was on HOA business." I pulled out the next tab. Group chat screenshots. I read them aloud. Michelle asking for fence removal vendor recommendations 2 weeks before I started construction. Michelle stating that owner surveys are advisory unless board approved. Michelle coordinating a response with specific vendors. Greg looked at Michelle. "Is this accurate?" She said nothing. I pulled out the police report. And on Saturday, a junk removal crew showed up at my house with a work order claiming my materials were unauthorized dumping. I called the police. They filed a report. Here is the case number. Greg took the report and read it. He looked at Michelle. "Did you authorize a removal?" I contacted a vendor to assess the situation. "You tried to have my property stolen," I said. "It was a cleanup," she snapped. Greg rubbed his face. "Okay. I think we need to table this and review all the documents." This is not as clear-cut as presented. Michelle stood. We need to vote on the violation now. Greg said, no. We need more information. Another board member, a woman named Lisa, spoke up. I agree with Greg. This feels rushed. Michelle glared at her. Greg said, we will reconvene in 2 weeks after a full document review. In the meantime, Masi Rokum, you are free to proceed with your fence as long as it complies with the survey and city codes. Michelle said, I object. Greg said, noted. Meeting adjourned. Michelle grabbed her folder and walked out fast. I stayed and talked to Greg and Lisa. They both apologized. Greg said Michelle had been pushing enforcement hard lately and it was causing problems. Lisa said she had concerns about vendor contracts and wanted to review the financials. I mentioned my public records request. Greg said, you should get those within 15 days. If you find anything concerning, let us know. I left feeling like I had won the first round, but I knew Michelle was not done. Over the next week, I started the fence project. My contractor came back once Greg sent him a written clearance. We dug the post holes, set the posts in concrete, and started installing panels. Every day, Michelle drove past. Twice a day. Slow. Watching. On Wednesday, I got an email from the management company. My public records request had been received and was being processed. On Thursday, I got a text from Eric. Check the group chat. I opened it. Michelle had posted reminder, all construction activity must cease by 6 p.m. per noise ordinances. Violations will be assessed at $200 per incident. I checked the governing docs. There was no 6 p.m. rule. The county noise ordinance allowed construction until 8 p.m. on weekdays. I replied in the chat. The county allows construction until 8 p.m. Can you cite the specific rule? Michelle did not reply. Eric replied, there is no 6 p.m. rule. This is made up. Michelle still did not reply. On Friday, the management company sent me a PDF, financial records, vendor contracts, and meeting minutes. I opened it and started reading. Within an hour, I found it. A vendor contract with quick haul junk removal. Monthly retainer, $1,500. Services, on-call debris removal and code enforcement support. Signed by Michelle Hayes on behalf of the Finance Committee. I cross-referenced it with the vendor list Michelle posted in the group chat. Quick Haul was one of the companies she recommended. I kept digging. Another contract with a property management consulting firm. Monthly fee, $2,000. Services, compliance audits and board advisory support. Signed by Michelle. The firm address was a P.O. box. I Googled the firm. No website, no reviews, no business registration in Utah. I checked the meeting minutes. The consulting contract was never mentioned. The quick haul retainer was never voted on. I took screenshots of everything. Then I found the group chat. Not the neighborhood group chat, the HOA board group chat. Someone had accidentally included it in the public records PDF. Probably a clerical error. I scrolled through. March 15th. Michelle, we need to tighten enforcement. Too many people ignoring rules. March 20th. Michelle, I found a vendor who can help with removals. I will set up a contract. March 22nd. Lisa, do we need board approval for that? Michelle, it falls under Finance Committee discretion. April 3rd. Michelle, my name is planning a fence project. I have been monitoring his property. Greg, is there a violation? Michelle, not yet, but there will be. I am building the case now. I read that line 3 times. Not yet, but there will be. She had been planning this before I even started. I kept scrolling. April 10th. Michelle, I have photos. I will file the emergency hearing as soon as he breaks ground. Lisa, should we give him a chance to file for approval first? Michelle, no. We need to set a precedent. I took screenshots of the entire thread. I sent everything to Eric. He called me immediately. Holy shit, he said. She coordinated the whole thing. This is retaliation. And those contracts are shady as hell. What do I do? You go back to the board with this. And you file a complaint with the state. What state agency? Utah Department of Commerce. They handle HOA complaints. This is financial mismanagement and possibly fraud. I spent the weekend compiling everything into a new packet. Survey, governing docs, doorbell footage, group chat screenshots showing vendor coordination, public records showing bogus contracts, board chat screenshots showing premeditated retaliation. And then I added one more thing. A timeline. I laid out every event in chronological order with timestamps. Michelle's late-night visit, the emergency hearing, the junk removal attempt, the group chat posts, the contracts, the board chat. I presented it as a timeline so the facts were undeniable even to people who hated drama. On Monday, I requested another board meeting. Greg agreed. That Wednesday, I walked into the clubhouse with my packet and a USB drive with video evidence. Michelle was already there. She looked calm, confident. The meeting started. Greg asked me to present. I handed out copies of the timeline. Then I started talking. I explained the late-night recon, the coordinated vendor response, the fraudulent junk removal attempt, the fake 6 p.m. noise rule. And then I showed the board chat screenshots. Greg read them. His face went pale. Lisa read them. She looked at Michelle. You said there was a violation. You said he ignored warnings. But you planned this before he even started. Michelle said, I was doing my job. Your job is enforcement, Lisa said, not entrapment. I continued. I also found vendor contracts that were never disclosed or voted on. Quick Haul is on a retainer that costs the HOA $1,500 a month. The property management consulting firm does not appear to exist. Greg looked at Michelle. Did you sign these contracts without board approval? They fall under Finance Committee discretion. No, Greg said. Contracts over $500 require a board vote per the bylaws. Michelle stood. I have been protecting this community for years while you all sit back and let people do whatever they want. You have been abusing your position, Lisa said. The room was silent. I pulled out my last piece of evidence. A complaint form for the Utah Department of Commerce. I have already filed this, I said. They are opening a case file. If the board wants to settle this internally, now is the time. Greg looked at Michelle. You need to resign. She laughed. You cannot force me out. We can call a special election, Lisa said. And based on this, I do not think you will win. Michelle grabbed her things and walked out. At the door, she turned. Keep talking, she said. I love adding notes. She left. Greg looked at me. I am sorry. This should never have happened. I want 3 things, I said. 1. A formal apology on the record. 2. The bogus contracts canceled and audited. 3. A refund of fees that hits the ledger like a slap. Greg nodded. We will draft a resolution. 2 weeks later, the board held a special meeting. Michelle did not attend. Greg read a formal apology into the record. The board voted to cancel the vendor contracts and launch an internal audit. and they voted to refund all enforcement fees I had paid over the past year, plus the cost of my survey and attorney consult. The refund check arrived a week later. It was not huge, but it was public. It went into the HOA ledger as a line item. Everyone in the neighborhood could see it in the quarterly financial report. Michelle resigned from the finance committee. Then she resigned from every leadership role. An election was called. She did not run. Eric joined the board. The state investigation continued. I got a letter saying they were reviewing the vendor contracts and would follow up in 60 days. On a Saturday morning 3 weeks later, a surveyor truck pulled up outside my house. Not my surveyor. A different one. County hired. They were doing a boundary audit for another property dispute 2 streets over. The surveyor saw my new fence and walked over. "Nice work," he said. "Clean line." "Thanks." He checked his own equipment against my fence line. "Spot on," he said. "Whoever did your survey knew what they were doing." Michelle walked past at that exact moment. She stopped, looked at the surveyor, looked at my fence. Her face twisted. The surveyor did not notice. He made a note on his tablet and walked back to his truck. Michelle stood there for a long moment. Then she yelled, "That fence is still wrong." The surveyor turned. "Ma'am, I just verified it. It is on the property line within a 1/4 inch." She opened her mouth, closed it, turned and walked away. Eric texted me later. "Did you hear? Michelle is moving." "Where?" "Out of state. She listed her house this week." "Good," I said. A month later, the state completed their investigation. They found financial mismanagement but not enough evidence for fraud charges. The HOA was required to implement new financial controls and bring in an independent auditor. Michelle was banned from serving on any HOA board in Utah for 5 years. The neighborhood group chat went quiet for a while. Then slowly, people started asking questions. About other enforcement actions, about other fees, about other contracts. The board opened a tip line. 3 more questionable vendor agreements were found and canceled. The fence stands. The posts are solid. The panels are level. The gate latch and padlock dangle from a chain, secured and working. I still see the maintenance worker sometimes, trimming hedges or checking sprinklers. He nodded at me once. I nodded back. I still work nights at the water treatment plant. Strict schedules. No flexibility. But I am not worried about surprise fees anymore. I hope your next meeting is uneventful.